Welcome to the Dream Journal. From the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, the Dream Journal is a weekly show where we explore the nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with listeners like you.
So there's no those vital minutes. Time is keenly found. We are not
A dream can be meaningful even if you don't know what it means. Today's music is called Beautiful Ultimatum, in honor of a quote from our guest last week, Sarah Edmonson. Beautiful Ultimatum. Can dream interpretation be manipulative? You bet. Today's guest, Gerette Buglion, will share her experiences with 18 years in a dream cult. Gerette is passionate about reclaiming her own life and helping others to reclaim theirs through writing groups in which you are invited to reclaim your autonomy through the written word, which is the name of one of her upcoming workshops. I am your host, Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork, and welcome to the Dream Journal. The Dream Journal is also a weekly podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review. We want to influence that algorithm in our favor. But really, most importantly, I would love you to talk to your friends about dreams. This is the mission of the podcast, to get people talking about dreams. I bet you have some friends that are interested in dreams that you never knew about, and they probably never knew that you're interested in dreams too. You can find archives at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and also at our homepage, ksqd.org/the-dream-journal. Thanks to KSQD for hosting us for these 5.5 years. I'd like to say hello to Gerette. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Catherine, it is a delight to be here and to hear your voice again.
Yes, good. So glad to have you on the show. You have been on the show a few times before, and it's always been a wonderful experience and always new. So we will see where you're at now and what's been going on. Let me read a little bio to introduce you, Gerette. Gerette Buglion wants to live in a world where cult leaders, narcissistic abusers, and manipulative marketing techniques are spotted, called out, and silenced, creating more opportunities for nourishing relationships to flourish. Her work as a lifelong educator centers on liberation from coercive control and supporting the integrative power of writing for survivors of cultic relationships through her Writing to Reckon programs. And her webpage is GeretteBuglion.com. That's Gerette, Gerette, and then Buglion is BUGLION.com. And Gerette now has 2 books out. The first one's called An Everyday Cult, when she describes her experiences in that of 18 years in that dream cult. And then Writing to Reckon Journal, in which she gives ideas about how to write your way out of the tangles of the past and to move yourself into the future and the present first, and then the future. And we're going to get to both of those topics. I think they're both very interesting. I also want to shout out to Living Cult Free, which is Gerette's new slogan, new hashtag. And did you also have a web page called Living Cult Free? Is that part of your journey there?
Yes, indeed. Living Cult Free is actually a nonprofit. There is a website, livingcultfree.com.
Okay. Thank you. I'll put a link to that on a webpage. Where to start? I mean, maybe we wanted to say a little bit about writing, because you wrote your book, An Everyday Cult. As I understand it, it was kind of during the pandemic. You were like, I have to get everything down on paper, or maybe that was when it kind of came to a culmination. And what is it about writing that's so helpful for unraveling experiences? And then we'll get into some of the details of the dream cult.
Oh my gosh, writing is, I believe, and have experienced firsthand, just powerfully integrative. So coming out of the cultic environment that I was involved with, as you mentioned, for 18 years, that happened. I left that organization in 2014. And it took me a little while before I was ready to start writing. I think it was about a year and a half. And I did do some journaling. I've always been a journaler. One of the things that happened for me is that in the group that I was a part of, we were required to write a ton of emails. And those emails included writing about our dreams and writing essentially confessionals about our dreams and how we were able to align with the work that we were supposed to be involved in or not. So that pressure of having to write daily and weekly, and there was a specific way that we had to write, it was something that kind of turned me off from writing for a while. So it took me a while before I was able to actually interested in actually starting to write about my dreams and to write about my process. And I think that's an important thing. Everybody, no matter what your experience is, allow there will be so often a point of readiness or interest or a little spark or something that will say, I want to write about this. And I think that's a beautiful thing to tune into, to listen for.
I'm going to read some stuff I wrote because I've been involved in coercive situations where dreams were used against me. And I have learned a lot from that. We debated back and forth about whether I was going to read something or not, and looks like I'm going to read it. So I talk a little bit about my experience where I was in this group where things were very hierarchical. We were told what our dreams meant, and rather than asked what our dreams meant. And I have just a few paragraphs I want to read about that. So during those years, I learned much about how not to approach dreams and the dreamers themselves. I've seen and experienced the vulnerability that comes with spiritual longing. People who are interested in dreams are usually seekers, looking for a better life, one with meaning and purpose. They are looking for satisfaction and peace. They may be looking for a community or for a sense of connection to the divine. These yearnings carry with them a natural desire for guidance, which can be manipulated and exploited. I try to keep these ideas in mind and to be tender as I can when working with dreamers, respecting their yearnings and vulnerabilities, and trying to let them tell me what they need rather than me telling them. I have made the decision to trust the dreamers who come to me, to speak with them, and to listen deeply to their ideas. I might ask them to consider an alternative viewpoint about a particular dream moment, but I respect that what they ultimately choose to understand about their dream is entirely up to them. I try to bring a kinder, gentler approach to the radical ideas I was taught. I bring a call to trust that we are all doing the best we can. I believe that humans are better encouraged with tenderness and self-forgiveness than with ruthlessness. My experience with that authoritarian group has led me to question everything I do, and that's a good thing.
It's beautiful to hear that piece of writing, Catherine, and just an acknowledgement of that you too have experienced the violation that can take place when someone tells you, someone believes that they have an inside knowledge about something as deeply personal as our dreams.
Yes. Yeah.
It just hurts. It's just, it hurts when that takes place. And I do believe it's a violation. And it was really beautiful for me to hear you just articulate your ethics and your commitment to making sure that the dreamer is always the one who is the final authority.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that comes to one of the statements of the IASD, the International Association for the Study of the Dreams, that the dreamer is the final authority on their own dream, or they certainly should be, because there's tremendous spiritual longing that comes with people who are interested in dreams. I found that to be pretty much universal. People wanting more. They're wanting a better life. They're wanting a community. They're wanting a connection to the divine, to God, whatever they imagine that to be, or whatever they experience that to be. And there's a tremendous amount of vulnerability there. So it's a huge responsibility when somebody says they're going to trust me with their dreams, and I really take that responsibility very seriously, because I have been violated, as have you, Gerette Buglion, and I wonder if it's time for you to share a little bit about some of your experience. I think you have a dream that you wanted to share around this topic.
Right. I would be happy. I just picked up my book, and I will read a couple dreams that are in the book in a chapter called Spiders.
Okay.
So these are two dreams that I had, and I think let's see what happens after I read them. But
right.
Okay, so I'm just going to read two of the dreams.
Okay.
Dream: huge spiders with enormous egg sacs hang from the ceiling of our kitchen. I'm alarmed at the thought of spiders hatching in the house, and I ask Frank, my husband, to get a bucket. I see a mother spider with a huge egg sac, and I whack at it kind of lamely, trying to kill it, but I don't. I feel bad about trying to kill the spider. And then there's a second dream. I'm with a man in a room filled with spiders. There are hundreds of them hanging from the ceiling. I watch as the man takes a big one, holds it between his thumb and his forefinger, and inspects it carefully. And then he squishes it with his fingers, and I am horrified.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, it's intense to read those two dreams. It's really, wow. So years and years ago, when I brought these two dreams to my ex-teacher, the way that we worked with them was that he really believed that I needed to kill the spiders. He believed that it was important for me, and that actually the man was the animus, and he was showing me how to kill the spiders. Mm-hmm. And that in that first dream where I kind of whack at the spider lamely, he called that I forget the word he used. I know I wrote it in the book, but this kind of overly sympathetic way that I interact in the world. So his interpretation was that these two dreams were really showing me that my sickness, and that was part of the way that. Let me just back up one sec there, because every dream that you brought to this teacher, there was always something that was identified as pathological, as pathology, and then also something else that would be the opening or the process or like the way through what the dreams are offering you to move into. And so in this situation, I took it to heart quite literally, that my teacher, who at that time I was deeply revered his insights and, respected his teaching. Right. It's an interesting choice of word to say respected, but, I listened to, I adhered to his teaching. I literally went into a period of killing spiders.
Like in waking life, killing spiders, like literally.
In waking life. And that was what I now know. And it wasn't until after I got out of this group and this teacher that I was really able to see that it was truly an assault on my nature. To do that, that I was doing something that was in direct conflict with my values. I have this silly thing, since I was a child, I would save bugs. I would, I'd bring them outside. I would carry them outside and set them free. And here I'm being told that it's like, that's a sappy, unhelpful part, an immature part of my, my personality, and that I should really get rid of that part of me.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Just like, just think that's I'm so sad, because that's like the child, thinking of the child, Gerette, seeing a creature that's in the wrong place, shouldn't be in the house. Let's put the creature out. And that tenderness of like taking this creature and putting it outside rather than just smashing it. And so there's of course I also want to bring it to the inner work level. That what are these bugs that this teacher is telling me I should smash? Like, these parts of myself. These are these parts of myself that I'm crushing.
Right. That I should crush. That it's actually good for me to crush. And it was a disorienting experience, and of course, wherever there's an environment where someone is an authority on someone else's inner life, there grows a dependence. And that was another trait of how this teacher kind of garnered, I would say, control over me. And I do want to say, before I say another breath, there were many beautiful things that I learned from this teacher. It was not all bad. Right. It's that the fact that there was an overarching growing dependence that I had on him in order to orient me to my inner life, rather than the other way around, where I was actually being guided. Because, like, at this point, I kind of hate to say it, but when I read these two dreams now, what I experience is there's a way that the man who's holding that spider and inspecting it carefully and then purposefully squishing it, that is what my soul was experiencing at the hands of this teacher.
Wow, getting the inspection, the deep inspection, and then being squished. Yes.
Right.
Yes, but there's something you said I want to highlight, Gerette, which I think is an extremely good point, which is that there were many beautiful things for you about this teaching that you were getting from this group, because nobody plans to join a cult, right? Nobody plans to get in a relationship with a narcissist. It's just there's ways that things feel good. There's something good here. It's just that there's the control that goes with it that ends up making it not worth. But there's good things in these ways we get sucked in, these places we get sucked in, is because there's something valuable.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's really worth highlighting, because there can be a lot of shame at suddenly realizing, oh my goodness, now I've giving all my money to this person or to this group, and how did this happen? And like to bring in that tenderness, like it was something good there that attracted you.
Right. And there always is, like you mentioned, Catherine, in the piece of your reading, your writing that you read just a few minutes ago, about people who are attracted to dreams being seekers and having a kind of overarching, these were not your words, but what I'm thinking is like an overarching idealism, and wanting to be, like, knowing that there's more to life, and wanting to engage, with life in a beautiful way. And that is the number one most common trait of individuals who exit controlling groups of all kinds. And I'm not talking like, I'm including with that, people who experienced, religious, controlling religious groups or spiritual groups or yoga communities that are abusive, or commercial, or industrial, organizations or even political groups that have these controlling narratives that actually usurp the individual's autonomy rather than supporting and perpetuating healthy interrelationships.
Right. And I love how you say that in the in your bio that you sent for me to read about that that by calling out these narcissists and these coercive situations, that creates more opportunities for nourishing relationships, because relationships can be very nourishing, but not if there's a lot of control from one person.
Exactly. I mean, we are, Catherine, we know this. We are a profoundly interdependent species.
Yes, we are.
We need each other. And, what takes place in any environment where we are, where polarization takes place, where there's a us and them, or a good or a bad, or where there's an overarching hierarchy that separates people from their true capacity, wherever those dynamics exist, we become less human. We become less relational because we're seeking something in a closed loop system where we can only access that which is what is in the system that you don't know this while you're in there, but that is actually being, that's the narrative within that system. And you can see this on governmental levels, where there's authoritarian regimes that, overlay a particular way that people need to be, and you toe the line, you toe the party line. And it can also be in, what I would call mini cults. It could even be a family, very small.
Right.
These things can happen in, such a wide variety of environments.
Right. Well, your book, even the title of your first book is called An Everyday Cult. Like it's not
Right.
It's not like Jim Jones down in where did he go?
He was in Guyana in South America.
Right. So it's not like you're being asked to to move into the compound and
Right.
service the cult's leaders' sexual desires or whatever it is. And yet there's a way that these everyday cults can be even more insidious because they are everyday.
Right. Right. And they are all around us. A colleague of mine wrote a book, The Cult Next Door. And she, literally grew up in a neighborhood and was in a small, cultic family cult, where her mother had a, religious teaching, and people came to her, but she, as the daughter, was under the scrutiny and under the thumb and under the control, of the mother. And this is like in a small town neighborhood, in anywhere USA.
Right.
So being aware of these dynamics is, can be helpful. And I'm realizing, Catherine, it's like, oh my goodness, we're talking about this aspect of my work, and yet here we are on Dream Journal.
Yes.
With a focus on dreams. So I don't want to, as you can see, I can easily talk about those topics. And of course, I'm always happy to, but, our topic for today, I was was working with dreams and also the power of writing. So
right. Well, we'll definitely focus in on that more in the second half. But this is all very, very wonderful to me, very helpful to me. It's like maybe this helps explain why I keep harping on the idea that we should be letting dreamers be the final authority on their own dreams, because it can go wrong. It can go very wrong. And you had this experience with a dream cult, and I've had some experiences with dream groups that wanted to really control what the dream was about. And I think it does happen. And in the groups the people go bankrupt, and like it affects relationships, and there's ways it has real world influences with the way that we look at our dreams. And so really giving authority to the dreamer is super important. And so I think this is all really valuable stuff, Gerette.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, Catherine, I just really remembered, I very rarely remember my dreams, but I have a little snippet from last night.
Ooh.
And it's like, oh my gosh, like here we are talking about dreams.
Perfect. You know what? How about we say that is it a short dream? Short? You said a snippet, so short. Why don't you maybe say the dream, then we'll do the break, and then we'll come back and talk about the dream. How about that?
Okay.
Okay, good. No, I'm glad. I think that's perfect.
So in the dream, I'm at a place with many, many people, kind of like like a school or campus or something. And all of a sudden it gets quiet. And people were busy, talking. Suddenly it gets really quiet. And everybody's looking in the same direction. And I hear someone whisper, "They are the bears."
They're the bears.
And so I creep closer to where everybody is looking. And I see a black bear in the woods. And then closer up, I only see like the rump of the black bear. And then closer up, as if it's like really close to me, was like a white-haired one. And I'm like, whoa, there's a white bear too. And I kind of whisper that out loud, and somebody says, "No, there's not." And then that's all I remember of the dream.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll have lots to talk about that when we come back. Thank you so much. So this is Gerette Buglion, who is author of 2 books called An Everyday Cult and Writing to Reckon Journal. And we are talking about the ethics of dream sharing, how that can be manipulated, and also about the power of writing to help us untangle those things from the past. So we are broadcast live from the KSQD studios in Santa Cruz and co-broadcast live in San Jose by KCXU. And Gerette's webpage is GeretteBuglion.com, GeretteBuglion.com.
Meet me in the middle, that's just tempting fate. You won't get what you want, won't negotiate. Meet me in the middle, that's just tempting fate. Tempting fate, tempting fate.
You're listening to the Dream Journal. My name is Catherine Bell. My guest today is Gerette Buglion. And I have a few announcements first. Well, one is I want to welcome our far-flung listeners who are listening live to the live stream, which you can do every Saturday morning from 10 to 11 a.m. Pacific time. We have some local folks, Santa Cruz, San Jose, Monterey. We also have Ashburn, Virginia. Welcome to the show. And today we have Santa Rosa, Rio Grande del Sul, and Brazil. So truly international show today. So glad to have you all listening. Next week, we will welcome Jason Altaver, who will talk about how he incorporates dreams into life coaching session. You can check us out on Instagram and Facebook by following hashtag The Dream Journal and also at Experiential Dreamwork. I release announcements about each show, and I'll let you know when the podcasts drop on Mondays. So, welcome back to the Dream Journal. This is Gerette Buglion. So glad to have you on the show, Gerette.
So glad to be here. Thank you, Catherine.
Okay. So we're talking about the ethics of dream sharing, and you ended by saying that you had a dream just this morning, and I think, that's the dream of the day is often the one to start with. And I wanted to summarize a little bit, see if I kind of got the gist of the dream, and then we can maybe explore that a little bit. Is that all right, Gerette?
Sounds great.
Okay. So I took a few notes as you were speaking because I'm a very visual person. Ironically, since being on the radio, but visual is very important to me. So I'm at a place where there's many people, some kind of a school. It's really quiet, and everyone is all looking in one direction. And people say there are bears, and I go over, and I see the rump of a bear. And then in a moment, I see a white-haired bear, and I say, there's a white one. But then someone says, someone says, no, you didn't see one? What was the last thing that someone who contradicted you said?
Yeah, and that's a good question. It was more like, when I shared it before, it's like, oh no, there isn't, or something. But I was thinking, what I remember is it was more like just a negation. It's like, it's not, or maybe it was more like it's not a bear, or it's not. There was definitely like this, yeah.
But the negation, like you're saying.
Either it's not a bear. Negation, exactly.
A negation, yeah.
It was a negation of what I saw. And what was quite striking in the dream is that the first bear was a black bear, very similar to what I'll see in the woods in Vermont where I live. If I'm lucky enough to see a bear, it's like this dark, very black. And I could see that, and it was thrilling. It's a beautiful, beautiful sight, and I did not get a good look at it. Mm-hmm. But then the white one was very close up. It was almost like I could touch it. Oh. Like it was textured. The hair was like, textured and ruffled and, very close to me.
Okay, so interesting. So, and yet that's the one that I'm being negated, the one that I can see the best. It's really close. It's right there. I can almost touch it. And yet someone's like, So that's kind of what we're talking about here, isn't it? I mean, I see, right? I see a bear. It's like right in front of me, this white close bear, and someone goes, nope, that's not it. And they get that. What is that like to feel that negation? Like, nope, what I experience is not true.
Yeah. So it's obviously an experience that I've had many times, as we've been talking about. And I also think it's something, what is so wild is that it's also something that can happen in daily life, where there can be, my husband and I right now are working on a renovation project, and we can get tangled up in perceptions.
Right.
Perceptions on reality.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
So when there's like a negation of what you're saying isn't real, I think there's a wide spectrum of experience around that, and on it can be kind of a minor thing, but on the extreme, it's also gaslighting.
Yeah, right.
It's actually the definition of gaslighting, isn't it, Catherine?
Okay.
Yeah, where gaslighting is where a controlling individual literally will deny reality and make the other person doubt their own sanity.
Okay. Right. I think it comes from a movie where the gas lights keep dimming, and the woman who's being controlled wants to know what's happening, and the man says, "Oh, they're not dimming." Isn't that right?
Right.
Is that how it goes?
Exactly.
Yeah. But she said, "But wait, the lights are." And she, "Oh no, what are you talking about? What's wrong with you? They're fine. The lights are fine." Like the denying reality.
Yeah, it's a fascinating film to watch. It's an old Ingrid Bergman film, and it's short, but it is where the term gaslighting came from. And it's very, and there was actually a whole criminal aspect of that. So that there was a reason that the husband was wanting to make the wife doubt reality.
Right. Okay. He was hiding something. Right.
He was hiding. Yeah.
Right. And so the thing about the denying reality, which is so beautifully right there in the dream. And one thing I haven't asked yet about the dream, which I'm curious, is like, what did you feel when somebody said, like when the negation happened? I mean, I can imagine all kinds of different reactions, and, the dream ends right there. So maybe we just, maybe there is no real answer to that, but like, what do you remember if you feel into it now? Like,
Yeah. There was a lingering moment, because I remember like really gazing at that white fur, and so in the lingering, I'm hearing the negation, and feel off put. It's definitely like, wait, what do you mean? But I do walk away. I think the dream ends with that feeling of me actually knowing the reality of the,
right.
of that fur.
Okay.
It's like, I could paint it, I could draw it, I could,
Right.
I could feel it. Like, it was almost like I could feel it. It was very multi-dimensional. It was kind of undeniable.
Right.
And I knew that.
Okay. So
that was like an orientation.
Okay. So I didn't believe the voice. I didn't even go, wait a minute, did I? Like,
there was a little there. There was definitely not so much believing, but more like maybe a little, that moment of like confusion, which I think is, that like I said, that's something that I've had a few times in these interactions with my husband around when we're dealing with, making decisions about this renovation project, where we'll have a different understanding or a different memory of something that the carpenter or the electrician said or something, and it's
right.
you can have that doubt,
Well, and it does come up in relationship a lot, like you're saying, like, right? Because we're different human beings and we have different views of reality, and we can be respectful of each other, but, maybe it's okay to not fully understand the other person at all times and like just say, okay, well, you see it your way, and that's not quite how I see it, and so maybe whereas in a narcissistic relationship or kind of a controlling relationship, there's never any possibility of that doubt. It's like, no, it's my way. And so maybe that's a sign of a healthy relationship, that you get to have different ways of looking at things.
I love that, Catherine. I think that's really helpful, both in this, the situation with my husband, and also in thinking about my relationship with my ex-teacher, my ex-dream teacher. There were so many times where there would be something like that, and he would say, well, this is the way it is.
Right.
And I just accepted it. Like, I may have had that little moment of confusion or disorientation, but then I grew to have a default. I did not question it. And that's when, I think whenever we're in an environment where we're accepting someone else's word, it's a good time to pause and say, well, is this really true? What is true? What's really going on here for me?
And so let's get back to writing. Like, is that one way for us to sort out what is true? Because I have a hard time knowing what I want when I'm with somebody else. Sometimes I have to leave the room to kind of check in with myself, and it's like, I'm not sure what I really want here. And so I have to leave because I'm very influenced by people, which I think is fine, but it's good that I know that about myself. And I've had, writing this book that my listeners know I've been working on, has been really helpful in clarifying my ideas. And so I wanted, maybe you could talk a little bit about more about the power of the written word.
Yeah, and the clarifying nature of the written word. That when I love, Catherine, how you described how easily influenced you are, and you might need to go walk into the other room just to kind of, like, that's a beautiful way of taking a pause. And writing has a very similar quality to that, where it's a pause from external stimuli. It's a pause from when other other input. And whenever we take that pause, that in and of itself is a beautiful start. But then with writing, we have the further beautiful gift of just finding words that can represent our experience, whatever it is that we're writing about. And, in the Writing to Reckon workshops that I facilitate, there's always, I offer a writing prompt that might be on a particular theme. And it's always optional to use it. If it resonates and it dovetails with what it is that you're wanting to write about, that's perfect. If it doesn't, you throw it out the window and you stay with, your own process. And then having the time, also when you know that other people are writing at the same time, there's a beautiful supported experience that takes place. And I would say particularly when you know the other people that are writing at the same time have had some very completely different experiences, but they're writing about the similar themes of trauma or themes of power over abuse or trying to understand different aspects of your lived experience. And then the writing itself is so clarifying. But then there's even more, Catherine. It gets even better. If you're at in a position where this is helpful, and then there's never any pressure to do this. It's only if people want to. But then there can also be the opportunity of then reading what you've just written for the other people in the space.
Okay.
And when that takes place, the people who are hearing what you're reading, what you have just written, we're taking it in a particular way, which is to listen for what are the phrases that really speak to us? What's the content that really resonates? And we're taking it in almost as its own little piece of art. It's something that's just kind of being offered up. And we try to separate it actually from the individual who just wrote it. And sometimes this is really hard because we do get close, to each other. And sometimes it's actually literally not possible. But it often is super helpful for someone to, after they've heard a piece, the person who is the author of that particular, what was just read out loud, then gets to hear reflections from those who heard it. And reflections on what phrases are really resonated or just pieces that really connected. And it is just so affirming. It's a beautiful, beautiful process that, I just cannot tell you how moving it is.
Right. So you're having another one of these workshops coming up soon, right?
Well, I have ongoing workshops that occur all the time, weekly, as well as one that is sometimes they are drop-in classes, and then there also are ones that are the same group comes together and does a 7-week session all together with the very same group, which builds in a different way that can be particularly helpful for people. And what I haven't even mentioned yet is that all of the Writing to Reckon work is really dedicated. It's a space for people who have experienced any form of power over abuse, whether it be in a cultic environment or a self-help group, or a religious or spiritual or yoga. We had listed all those different kinds, before. Just anywhere that people have experienced that, and this is the content that really is the theme.
Mm-hmm.
And
so it's not just a general writing group. It's not a general writing group. It's more about specifically people who have been in this power under situation.
Yes, it's a group for survivors, for people who have experienced some level of abuse in this way.
And then, of course, they also, if they don't choose not to join a group or they prefer not to join a group, you have your book called Writing to Reckon Journal, right? That people can do this prompts on their own. Is that right?
That's absolutely true. Okay. So that's where people who just need more autonomy and more privacy to go through the process. The journal is designed on the 6 stages of recovery from cultic abuse that. And it kind of carries people through a process that, can be really helpful. And then I should also just mention, of course, that this coming weekend, on a week from today, we'll actually, right at this time, from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern.
On September 28th.
Yep. September 28th, that'd be 10 to 1 Pacific time. There's a beautiful symposium called Reclaiming Autonomy Through the Written Word. And there are 4 different panelists, 4 different experts and authors who will be presenting their process. Mm-hmm. So it will be, just a beautiful experience and quite educational and inspiring, and just hearing from people. Sarah Edmonson, who's a pretty well-known podcaster. She's from the whistleblower of the NXIVM cult, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
And also married podcaster with her husband, Nippy, of the A Little Bit Culty.
Nice.
So she's one of the presenters, as is Dan Shaw, who wrote two books on the traumatizing narcissist. Right. He also is a cult survivor and more of an academic writer. And we'll be speaking about his process with writing.
Wow, this is great. I'll have all the links on the episode page. And then I'll also want to remind our listeners that the webpage is GeretteBuglion.com, GereTTE, and then BUGLION, Buglion.com to find out information. And I wondered, do you have just like a few seconds of final things you'd like to say, whether it's more about the workshop or about encouragements for the listeners, and then we have to wrap up.
I think it's really about the written word and just exploring it, whether through listening, other people sharing it, and then that might inspire you in some way, or to take your own dreams and your own lived experiences and just find ways to let words splash onto the page and see what happens.
I love that. Words splashing onto the page. Gerette, thank you. It's been another fabulous interview. I'm really glad to have you on the show. Take care. Let's be in touch.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye now.
Bye. So thank you all for listening. The Dream Journal is produced at the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, and we are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific at ksqd.org. The podcast is released on the Monday after the show. It spreads interest in dreaming when you subscribe, rate, and review. Do contact me if you'd like to be a guest on the show to promote a new book or to tell folks about your dream-related offerings and your ideas. I'm Catherine Bell. You can find out about my dream coaching practice at Experiential, Dreamwork.com. Email me at catherine@ksqd.org, KATHERINE@ksqd.org. Follow Experiential Dreamwork and hashtag The Dream Journal on Facebook and Instagram to find out about upcoming shows. I'd like to thank Rick Kleffel for the music and the engineering, also Eric Nelson for the phones. Intro and outro pieces are both by Mood Science. And tomorrow morning when you wake up, take a minute to write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal.